Hello, everyone. This is Glenn Hodges. Welcome to Chattanooga Self Improvement Meetup, a mastermind group where we listen, learn, ask questions, and comment in an effort to help make each other the best version of ourselves, thus helping to make the world a better place in which to live. I'm very pleased to introduce our guest speaker today, Judy Herman, the author of Beyond Messy Relationships. As an innovative counselor, speaker, and award-winning author, Judy helps entrepreneurs gain personal and professional confidence through mastermind groups, retreats, and consulting. She teaches them how to tune into their purpose and create the income needed to serve from a place of vibrant authenticity. Judy is a certified Les Brown inspirational speaker and spoke on his global platform last month, the Power Voice Women's Summit. 3 strategies for creating calm out of chaos. Judy, it's all yours, sweetheart.
Oh, thank you so much, Glenn. And I am so privileged to be in your presence. I know there's some amazing human beings across the screen here. I'm very pleased to connect with you in this way, first of all. And I believe that in this moment, it is a divine invitation for us. And I'm going to talk with you about creating calm out of chaos, because we are in a very chaotic situation on so many levels, aren't we? So here's what I wanted to share with you. First of all, would you just pause with me for a moment, because I had some wonderful notes ready. I'm going to show up authentic and real here, and also chaos, because I thought I had the right notes. But you know what? Hold on just a second. I want to stay on target. Number 1, I need to be. And number 2, I have what you call attention deficit disorder. I talk about that in my book. So would you, anyway, Glenn, can you just pause the recording for a second? Because I really want to get myself together here.
All right.
Recording. Oh.
We are recording.
Yes. And thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. You know what? It's awesome. And here we're going to talk about from calm to chaos. You know, we all got up this morning, didn't we? And so for some of us, it was a very chaotic thing to do. Some of us are getting kids ready for school. Some of us are trying to manage, a late night from before. But my name is Judy, and I want you right now to imagine what your ideal life looks like. And I want to talk with you about moving out of chaos and into calm. You see, I'm a mental health counselor who specializes in relationships, and I have heard a whole lot of stories from my clients over the years. It is an awesome privilege to enter into the very deepest places of my clients. And most of my clients are entrepreneurs, business owners, pastors, lawyers, people in healthcare industry, and even other therapists. And what I've discovered over the years, that a lot of times people look wonderful on the outside. They look calm on the outside and put together, but there's internal chaos from within. And there's one question I want to share with you, what most people ask, and I hear it over and over in my counseling session. People want to know one thing. Am I normal? Is it me? Am I the one that's crazy? So when I listen to my clients, I take the time and listen. And by the way, taking the time to listen to someone is a wonderful gift you can give them, because to feel felt by another human being is something that we all long for, and it is a basic human need that we have. So I love it when they come in, and each person that I see, it's like I see them, this is a divine invitation, a divine appointment. But when I hear their stories and they describe to me their crazy environment or the dysfunction that's going on in their relationship, and you'll hear something like the counselor say, Don't you hate it? Counselors just say, No, I don't do that. Sometimes I do. But what I usually do is I give them back a summary of what they told me. Because what's in the head and what makes sense in your head, and then you say it out loud, then that's when they have their aha moments. Oh my gosh, that sounds really crazy. Yeah, it's the outward environment, it's the outward interaction. And yes, of course, you have some depression or anxiety going on because that is a normal response to the chaos outward. But you see that the chaos is exacerbated within our minds. I've written a book. I'm very, very proud of it. Most therapists who write books will write about the intense and dramatic stories of their clients. But for me, I decided to write it about the intense and dramatic story of my own life. It is part memoir, but I show up as a therapist at the beginning of each of the chapters. So I've had some readers say to me, "Hey, Judy, I feel like I'm getting therapy from you and I'm not even paying you for it." It's not a substitute for it, obviously, but you'll get some insights into your own life. And I'm very proud. I just got to say this because I know I'll forget if I don't say it now. Very proud that I've got Author Academy Awards. It was top finalist for Author Academy Awards. So just wanted to let you know that. And it's available in all formats, which I'm very proud of. And so, every one of us knows that we are people of dignity and value and worthiness. We know that deep within our hearts. But you see, the chaos comes, and that very deep place in our hearts is attacked. And that's why then we show up in a reactive mode. And sometimes we can make that chaos even worse. I need to share something with you because I am a mental health therapist, and there's so many intricate things about the human brain and our minds. So when we can make chaos worse, we can co-create a mess in a relationship, and we don't even know it. But what's going on in our society, what's going on politically, what's going on in our country, we've got people that are showing up in the reptilian parts of their brain. This is a part of the brain that is the fight, flight, or freeze part. It's a very primitive part of the brain. Can you all see my little lizard here? Sometimes, like when I have couples come into my office or I'm meeting with them and they're trying to relate to each other, but this part of the brain does not know the difference between past or present. It doesn't know the difference between you or other, and it only knows danger or safety. So the chaos is created when we try and we stay in this reactive mode. And then when we get out of the reactive mode, then we make up stories in our minds, the executive functioning of the brain, where we can connect some dots. But the stories, the narrative, creates even more chaos in the story. So I want to talk with you, though, about how to get out of the chaos and into the calm. And there's a couple things that I want to share with you. And I'd like for you even to right now, just imagine your ideal life. Imagine what it's like to live in that calm. Can you just imagine that right now? Because some of us, we're stuck in the chaos, even in our own heads or outwardly. And we're hiding. We're hiding like as if we're in a dark cave and we're depleted of this fresh air. Before I share more about the strategies, I want to share that there's two things that I want you to hang on to as we talk about moving from chaos and into calm. Number one, you might want to write some of these down. Number one, chaos is necessary. Yeah, I said that. Chaos is part of the human journey. Okay, because we do have these reactions, right? Calm, number two, calm is necessary. It's designed to be appreciated. Well, chaos is necessary. Calm is temporary. That's what I wanted to say. Calm is temporary. I love the author Glennon Doyle Melton, who wrote the book Carry On Warrior. And she talks about life is beautiful and it's brutal. And then she came up with this word, Life is brutal. That's not a speech impediment, by the way, but it's true. We have both chaos and we have calm, and there's purposes for both of them. You see, every one of us have faced transitions, especially now and in the last 18 or more months. What we thought was stable, our country, our political system, our families, our careers, our relationships. Some of us have lost more than we've ever imagined. But I want to share with you one of the most transformational techniques that's helped hundreds of my clients. And it's so very simple and yet profound. And it has the potential for getting you from chaos into calm. But you use it often, chaos to calm, because that is a cycle, chaos to calm. But we need to get into our vibrantly authentic life. Some of us can't even imagine what that's like. But here's the 3 strategies, and I'd like you to write this down. Number 1, awareness. Tune in to the letter A. Just circle it when you write it down. You see, awareness is this lifelong journey. According to neuroscience, our brains are not even totally online until we are at the age of 25 and beyond. We're still under construction. And we make some crazy decisions, don't we? Life decisions. And then we end up judging ourselves harshly. And then at a later stage in life, we're judging ourselves, but we don't realize, oh, wait a minute, we didn't have all our faculties together in our brains because we didn't have the insight. And so then we go through our lives and we listen to, I call them the committee. We listen to the committee. The committee is telling you all these harsh things about yourself. How foolish, how dumb, how, just all the negative things. You can't do this. Look what you've done in the past. That's what the committee says. So we need to begin to be aware that there is a committee and be aware that we have this lifelong journey of chaos and calm, and to be aware that we can forgive ourselves, we can have grace for ourselves, and we can live in this present moment, and we can live beyond, and we don't have to be defined by our past. So, to get rid of the shame and to be aware of God's forgiveness and his love. And see, we miss out on living a life of grace if we are not aware. And there's so much more that we need to be aware of, even now, as we're here right now. There is so much. We don't know what we don't know, right? I love it that Thich Nhat Hanh says that awareness is like the sun, and when it shines on things, they are transformed. So awareness is first. Make sure you circle that A in awareness. Now, the second strategy or formula here is intentions. Write the word intentions down and circle the letter I in intentions. Have you ever unintentionally have you ever unintentionally offended someone? You said something and it just really triggered the reptile. No, you didn't intentionally do it, but we weren't intentional to be aware. So we can have these light bulb moments, but for positive change to happen, to move from the chaos and into the calm, we need to be intentional and to raise that awareness. And to do that, we're going to have to take time to pray, take time to reflect, take time to meditate, imagine, and to plan. You see, there's some ancient Greek literature that I love to read. And it says, there's a passage that says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, and I understood as a child, and I thought as a child. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. Isn't that interesting that here in this ancient Greek literature, we have something that's very true neuroscience-wise, There's certain ways we need to become aware of and realize that now we have the capacity to create a different narrative that in which all of us were online and developmentally. So the third thing is risks of growth. So write down the word risk and circle the letter R in risk. Now, we're not talking about foolish risks or crazy risks, but we're talking about risks that are based upon awareness and intentionality. Now, if you look at each of the letters in each of these words, it spells air, right? Now, I want to share with you, and this is a way that you do this over and over. It will get you from chaos and into calm, even in the most chaotic of situations. But here's what I do with my clients. It's a technique. And I also do it with my little grandchildren when they come over and visit. And so when I ring this bell, I'd like for you to just breathe in. Okay. So, and if you all want to close your eyes, feel free to do that. Okay. So take a deep breath in. And then go to the top of your lungs and then slowly breathe out as if you're breathing through a straw. Now, if we had more time, in fact, I'm going to ask you just to do this while I finish speaking here, but take your deep breath in and slowly breathe out. But when you do it 3 times like that, what happens is that it slows down the nervous system. It grounds us in this present moment, in this moment in time. To me, that's this moment, this present moment, and how you create it and what you're aware of. That's your calm. I call it a divine invitation. Actually, that's a subtitle of my book, Divine Invitations to Your Authentic Self, in order to get beyond the messy relationships. Because our lives are valuable, and we know that deep within. We know that deep within, but some of us are not aware of it. And we live in chaotic situations, or we spend time with a person who just drains us emotionally. We'll spend time with them and then we feel like we're in this black hole and we're being sucked in. Or we say yes to a lot of things that we need to be saying no to, because the more we succeed in our businesses and our careers and our calling, there's going to be opportunities that come out and we don't know then, oh, wait a minute, we get more scattered, right? That's the chaos. But we need to take in that deep breath of air because, we're born into families, imperfect family systems, imperfect cultures and religions, and we get off. We get off of the reality that our lives are valuable. And here's what I got to share with you, because I was raised in a very conservative denomination, faith-wise, and I learned a whole lot of things. Number one, you don't smoke, you don't play cards, and you don't drink, and you don't engage in premarital dancing. Since that time, okay, I've learned that life is a dance. Life is movement, right? And our lives and our relationships are in constant motion. And yes, we do go from chaos and into calm and into chaos and into calm. That is what it does. We do that. So our emotions, our movement and motions are emotions that are designed to flow. I actually declare and wholeheartedly believe that our emotions are temporary messengers to our souls. So we need to honor them, okay? If irritability shows up, or anger, or depression, or whatever, we don't need to just deny them. We need to honor them and treat them as if they're guests, right? When we have guests over and we'll put out the nice china and the napkins, we'll pay and treat them well, honor them, we'll listen to them. And then they leave. That's exactly what our emotions are supposed to do. We listen to them, but we don't want to get stuck in any of them. We don't want to get stuck in ruminating about negative things that the story in our head about the reaction is going to be telling us. We don't need to be listening to the committee. No, we need to listen to the emotions. We take our deep breaths, we honor them, we write down whatever their messages are. We take heed to it, whatever changes we need to go through, whatever decisions that we need to make that we've not made. And we need to take bold risks of growth. Listen to them. They're temporary. But, some of us get stuck in what you call those unpleasant emotions, anger, fear. By the way, fear is definitely, it's like a constant companion, especially when you're getting ready to grow to another level of growth. Instead of being stuck and you're moving, taking a step forward, fear is going to attach to you, right? And was it Zig Ziglar that said the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real? But you see, that's where the chaos in our souls come. We are like comfortable with where we are, but then we've got, we need to move forward. And life is movement, and we need to keep on moving, right? But then some of us get stuck in that fear rather than feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Got to bust through that. And that's part of our human journey. But you see, some of us, our relationships and where we are in our lives, some of them become war zones. Rather than, in my case, and probably some of yours, because I don't know you, I likely have heard parts of your story in my counseling office. But some of us have, instead of a marital partnership, we have, like, we're not living together, we're dying together. So what do you do if you're dying together through a messy relationship or you're stuck? So let's take another deep breath of air right now, because change will not happen without intentions. And taking care of yourself is vital. And especially, just because I specialize in relationships, I'm a mental health therapist, but I specialize in relationships. But if you're living with someone who has poor coping skills or short temper, that causes chaos, of course. But taking care of yourself is vital, because especially when you think that you could manage his short temper, no, you cannot do for others what only they can do for themselves. And I know, because I have 40 years of marital experiences with two different men, two different husbands. And I wasn't aware that you can't do for others what only they can do for themselves. And you might be saying to me, well, Judy, you don't understand. My situation's different. And I get that. So here's what I'd like for you to do right now is to focus on the R in our AIR acronym, risks. In my favorite book, it says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of love and power and of a sound mind. But it requires a risk of growth. And I want to share a story that happened after World War II. You see, there were Japanese soldiers hiding in caves long after the war was over. And they were on high alert, armed and dangerous. And the villagers were threatened by them, of course. And they were ready to use force and even kill them if necessary. But one person convinced the villagers that the soldiers were worthy of dignity and respect. And this one person convinced the rest of the village. So with a military band playing the Japanese national anthem, they marched toward the caves and they announced with loudspeakers, "The war is over. And one by one, each of those soldiers risked walking out of the cave and into the fresh air. We all have cave stories, and I've helped other people be aware and intentional and create their risk of growth. I've helped couples create resilience in their marriages. But here's my cave story. I was still unaware of the severity of my second husband's mental illness. Oh, he had years of wellness when we met through ballroom dancing. But I stayed in a marriage that was long past its expiration date. And I couldn't do for him what only he could do for himself. I was suffocating. I took a deep breath of air. My risk was facing the reality that I couldn't help him. I got to a point where I said, I can't do this anymore. I decided to face my greatest fears. And that's when I began to feel the rhythm of my life. I decided to let go of what doesn't belong to me. And that's when I began to hear the band playing the music of my soul. I chose to live my life worthy of love, dignity, and respect. And I learned a new dance. Oh, what is your cave story? There's lots of fresh air. And yes, there's chaos that invites you into your authentic life. There's chaos that has a purpose of helping you become more aware. There's chaos that helps you to become more intentional with your life. And there's the chaos that moves you into risk of growth. Because deep in your heart, you know that you are worthy of dignity and love and respect. The war is over. This moment in time right now, it's a divine invitation. You breathe into it, you live in it, and there's calm. My name is Judy Herman, author of Beyond Messy Relationships. And I'd like to give you a relationship stress quiz, and you can sign up for that on my website, judycounselor.com.
Thank you, Judy. That was awesome. Kelly, I hope you were able to listen to most of it. You probably heard me explaining that you would not be joining us initially with video, and we're glad you could. So maybe, what is your take on what Judy had to say today?
Oh, first of all, let me apologize for my delay. Some
No
of us just
apology. Already.
needed to suck it up and give ourselves a little bit of sleep. Judy, I want to say thank you. I caught the last half of your talk and you said something so powerful. Last week, I had probably the biggest speaking engagement of my side business, if you will. And that fear is real. And what I kept telling myself was new levels, new devils. And it was a matter of talking through it. And so y'all pray for my husband. But that was just something that I thought was very significant about what you said, is that I don't think wherever we are in life, the group that I spoke to were directors and vice presidents for a company. And we think you get to a certain level in your career and then the fear is gone, and it's not. So I just wanted to say thank you for calling that out and for reminding us to breathe.
My pleasure. Thank you, Kelly.
Judy, would you say that is it possible that fear ever goes away in a person's life?
You know what? If I wanted to share this, actually, I wanted to share this even in my talk. You know, some of us have grandkids, some of us don't, but You treat any emotion that you have as if they're one of your grandkids, right? You lock the like if you're driving around, you're going to buckle them up in the back seat, but you're not going to put them in the driver's seat. And so, yes, I believe fear is going to be there. And if it's not there, then you might be stuck or something. Like you might just be stuck in a cave or something. I don't know, but you need fear will accompany you with and the unknown does. And why do people stay in toxic relationships? There's a fear of the unknown, right? And so, yes, fear is something that I think is it's universal. It'll always be there in some form or another. We can conquer it at one level. And like Kelly said, it's going to show up at another level.
Let me throw out, I maintain that if you're not experiencing fear, you're not operating outside of your comfort zone, and therefore you're not growing as a person. Anyone want to take issue with that? Coach Dan, what's your take on that? Am I off basis?
I think fear is normal. If it's not, in classic Dan terms, you're full of shit. If you don't have fear, you're not living your authentic life. So many of us will look in the mirror and we'll lie to ourselves. And I think that goes with relationships too. We can say, well, it'll get better if I do my half, or it'll get better if, if this or if that. And we make all these agreements and we're lying to ourselves because we're afraid of saying, you know what, we've done our best and this doesn't work. And I think one of the most profound and true things that you said, Judy, was you cannot do for others what only they can do for themselves. And as a coach, we see this all the time. And even recently, I had someone call me and say, can you help my grandson? Here's what's going on. And I said, probably not. They said, why not? And I said, because your grandson isn't the one calling me. So as much as we think maybe we can fix or we can help or we can educate, the mind is only going to receive on the level that it's ready to receive. So very valid. Good
So
stuff.
you agree with me? If you're operating within your comfort zone and not experiencing fear, you're not growing. You're stagnant.
Totally.
I believe, because I just fear's never going to go away. You're always going to face it if you're doing new things.
Right.
And I'm currently doing some new things, and in fact, I'm starting to coach live on Instagram, and that's pretty gutsy, but I love it. Who else would like to jump in? Deborah, you should have some profound comment to make.
Well, most of you know that I am a cutting edge kind of gal. And
No, not you, Deborah.
The risks I've taken in life have been more than most people would care to ever even dream of. And I'm not quite sure how that happened. But I think early on, I understood that fear was going to be part of my life. And the question was really, at what level? There's fear and then there's fear. And there's an inner sense now that I have of when I get to the point where it's just not going to be constructive and I have to take a break. And I have to rethink, what I'm going to do. But, when you're somebody, when I look back on it and I see, choices I made, as you say, it's an interesting experience, to make a choice to go take a job in Oklahoma after the Oklahoma City bombing, so you can actually see what's going on. The curiosity, right? If you're a really curious person, the fear is probably going to be with you, And if you're not curious and you just stay at home and watch TV, well, I consider that a pleasant evening, but not a life. So it's something that I try to make friends with, but I recognize that I frequently go too far. And it's something that maybe we could address is there is a price to pay, and it's a physical price. It takes its toll of you, and you have to pay attention to that. It's your physical being speaks to you about the level of fear and where you are in the tolerance of it. And if you decide not to pay attention, it doesn't go away. I have learned the hard way. It does not. It makes it more louder, clearer, until you have no choice. So I try not to get to that point. I don't know if this makes sense to all you, but there you have it. Oh, it does. Thank you, Judy. So
Yeah.
I'm not crazy, huh?
Definitely. I'm writing things in the chat too. I hope that's okay to do, Glenn. But
Oh,
yes,
sure.
I think you're spot on, Deborah. We're designed as human beings to grow and grow up, not just to go through school, until, we graduate from college or whatever, but we are designed to continue our growth throughout our lives. And to not grow is not even how we're designed as human beings to be. So I think you're spot on, Deborah, and I so appreciate that, your transparency.
thank
Maurice,
you.
I think most people know you had a little interesting ride on a motorcycle last year, resulting in you getting a new motorcycle. And I relate that to me being thrown from my horse when I was 11 years old, and then getting back on the horse months later after my back was where I could actually climb up into the saddle. There was a little fear there. Was there any fear when you got back on your bike?
Well, before I got back on my bike, I had to make a decision. What are the risks? After having celebrated my third anniversary of my 20th birthday, I decided, what are the risks at this stage of the game? And I really love, Judy, what you're doing today, because it's all of what motorcycling is about. My intentions were to get back on the bike safely. My risk had intentions because my goal was to reduce the risk that I could control. I can't control everything else, but I knew what I could do for my part. My intention, and I have to always come back to that, because my intention was to properly plan. What do I have as my equipment? Am I thoroughly prepared with the safety factors that I can control before I go out? What is my intention is to have a safe ride. What are my ultimate intentions? To go home safely. So all of these things that you're talking about today are just really resonating, and I'm just so much enjoying this, and I thank you so very much.
Maurice, if I could interject one thing, how could you relate the motorcycle riding, the accident, with your career? You've got a very interesting career. You broke the racial barriers in TV reporting and up in Boston. How would you relate that to motorcycle riding?
I remember the risk was taking the job in Boston to begin with. It was probably one of the most racially dangerous places because of school desegregation and neighborhood segregation in America. We had the expression, they said, "Where are you going?" And I would say, "Well, I'm going up south." Because the South had the reputation, but the real violence, the unspoken, was happening in places like Boston. And I remember being a radio reporter and what it was like to go into these neighborhoods where you could not safely go. And not just me as a person of color, but the Irish couldn't go into the Italian neighborhoods. I mean, it was just ridiculous. but the tribalism was there. And during school desegregation, myself and a few other reporters, mainly of color, were welcome to come in to talk to young people in the white neighborhoods about what it's like. So that was interesting. But the most dynamic thing that happened when I moved from being a reporter and had the opportunity to become an anchor, television anchor. The news director took me to the set and showed me the chair. He said, look at it before you sit in it. He said, do you hear the voices? Do you hear the footsteps? I said, Judy, there's that breath, that calmness, like, is this dude okay? I don't hear anything. So he said, do you hear those footsteps? I said, no, I don't. He says, those are the footsteps of other Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians that are coming behind you for that chair. You got here as a first, but it's not your chair forever. So before you sit in it, think about what you had to do to get it and know that it's not permanent. So treat that chair with intentionality from here on out. And that really resonated with me. And and Dan Hall, I have to thank you too, because during a little period in my life when we all first started to come together, I talked about procrastination, and I have not forgotten your words, and I've been moving ever steadily on that. So again, you are my coach.
Appreciate that, Maurice. Thank you.
And I'd like to say that Maurice was on 15 minutes before anyone else this morning. Tripp, it's good to see you back with us, buddy. You're out there. Are you scared out there in the jungle? Are you coming out of the cave?
I'm just trying to hide the rest of my office because I'm in unmove mode, so it's kind of chaotic back
Well,
here.
we didn't know if maybe you were chopping it up and smoking it or what.
No, I'm just glad to be here, Judy. I like what you were talking about. I have not heard the false evidence appearing real in a while, but that one kind of struck me, mostly because of what I've been going through. As most of you know, I was unemployed for a while. Part of the reason I haven't been here is because I'm employed now, so that's a good thing. But I know when I was looking, I got really fearful about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no jobs. Oh my gosh, I'm not qualified. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to get this. And that was that false evidence, because after I just took a breath and realized where I was and what I was doing and what I was trying to do, I ended up getting 3 offers. So, it was just a matter of time. It didn't happen on my schedule, and that's probably what I was really fearful about. Yeah, it was nice to hear that. I came in a little late, but what I did hear, it was nice to hear, because it's all very, very true, and it's very helpful to get those reminders of, fear is not something to be scared of. Those who are courageous are not fearless; they just step into it. That's what you got to do.
The good news is we're recording today, so you can go into our YouTube channel, Chattanooga Self Improvement Mastermind in YouTube, and which is one of my channels. Shake, all the way from Maryland. We got one of our 2 Maryland representatives with us today. Are you any takeaways? I know you got in a little bit late. You had other responsibilities this morning, but any takeaways today you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. Let me come into the video in a little bit as I am get oriented in my office. I woke up really early in the morning today, probably 3:30, 4 o'clock. So I took a little nap right now and then I saw it's already 8 o'clock. So, but thank you all for letting me be part of this. I am by background, I am an engineer, became a trainer because of my natural ability and enthusiasm and passion for people and working with people and that kind of thing. So later became a speaker coach. And currently I'm helping or working with people who are just graduating or graduated or in the workforce having difficulty, because that's what I had a struggle in my life as an immigrant about 25 years or so ago. And as an entrepreneur spirit, I've tried different things, and some were successful and lots of them were failures, but I learned and I like to fail forward, just like my mentor says, Dr. John C. Maxwell. And that's why I'm here too, because I like people who are like-minded and who are positive, and at the same time, they're in the practice of helping others and growing together. But definitely looking forward to today's speaker. And I saw the name, and I know Glenn has connections with people who are able to do that and who are able to impact people. So that's why I'm here to learn and see what I can contribute. So thanks. I'm
Jake, looking at your experience as an immigrant, one of the things we talked about today Judy talked about was fear, part of the chaotic life. Well, what were some of the fears that maybe you dealt with that maybe Judy could jump in and comment as you share?
Yeah, of course. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Well, as I think Tripp was saying, that courageous people are not fearless, they also have fear. And well, to tell you the truth, I can tell you my very first experience, how it happened. So I was brought up in I would say, kind of not affluent but well-off family in Bangladesh. That's where I came from. And the day I came in 1992, when I was in my youth, probably 16, 17 years old or so, at that time, when as my shuttle was driving, I vividly remember from Minneapolis to another remote city called Mankato, about 78 miles away, and I was alone, and it was driving through all the snows and everything, and which I never had seen prior to that. I thought I'm going to close to the end of the earth or something like that. And it was really a scary situation for me. And I was so uptight that I did not talk to any of the 15 other passengers in that shuttle bus. And they were asking me questions, and I did not know how to respond, and I did not know why they were asking me those questions. Those are just regular life questions to a kid somebody would ask. And from that time to taking courses and then taking a job, part-time job and all those, and going to a different city, another remote city, and getting used to the driving, then getting used to everything new, and then go to a job to make some money as I needed at some point, because my sponsorship was not lasting for too long or partially. So even in those cities, when I remember I was going to another city at nights for a night shift work, and some of those people, they were looking at me, and all those times, everything was full of fear because I was not exposed to anything at all. But overcoming that and growing up in an environment not too far from or actually very close to a slum, where I had no clue of an ATM machine, which was a magic box to me at that time, and becoming a person who I am and establishing here. And not to brag about myself or anything, I have not done anything but compared to that, what I've done, what I'm here for, and I have 2 kids, and we have established. And at some point, I even wanted to go back, and then I figured out that I don't know anything of that country where I want to go back, where I was born. So, of course, this became my country and the place that I love and respect. All these things, I mean, there's every little things that I went through. There was fear, there was failure, there was difficulty, there was challenges, but at the same time there was perfection also. Um, and and there were, and moreover, there were people around me, and people who care about people, and people who love people, people who uplift people. So those are the things that attracted me, and those are the things that brought me to where I am. But my question to Judy would be that if somebody is, that, I mean, they don't know where they're going, how would they deal with that? And in other words, if if I had less fear at that time, or every step of my way at that time, where would I go to school? How would I go to a different school? How would I change my school? How would I get a job? How would I do anything in life? And then how would I drive or mix with people where I don't belong, and that kind of thing. If I knew at that time some of the things that I could have done, or I could be doing, I probably would have been in a even much brighter, better situation. So
Let me answer this, Sheikh. This is awesome because you're hitting on some things I think that are some questions perhaps that all of us have. Yes, part of my message is that there is purpose in the chaos. There is purpose in the fear. So fear is necessary, chaos is necessary in order to launch us into what we are, who we are today. And so, and also I did make mention of, like, neuroscience wise, our brains are not totally online until we're in our mid 20s. So every one of us as human beings, this is like a normal human journey for all of us, that we're going to have some time. We're going to look back and we're say, oh, I wish I could have, woulda, shoulda, right? But not to judge ourselves too harshly, but to instead use the things of the past that we regret, or that we'd rather, well, if we would have this. Actually, it's a very common thing. I'm a therapist, and so people who come into the counseling office and then they get their healing and this awakening, so to speak, and there's grief associated with that. There's like, oh, like they might be in their 50s or something. Why didn't I do this when I was in my 30s? So this is like part of this journey. We don't want to ruminate on that. We want to live in this here and now, but also just honor these emotions that are temporary, that they are designed to launch us into a next stage of growth. So I hope that answers your question to some extent. What we've learned, how we've learned to relate in our family of origins, and all of us have early experiences in our lives. So if we can get, and if we can connect the dots, which is part of what I do as a therapist for people, it helps them to connect their dots from their past to their present. So what's going on in the present is not you don't define yourself in the here and now, or even predict your future based upon your past. So there's redemption, there's I call it resurrection, a new life, and we're continually reinventing ourselves. But that's what I believe we as human beings are designed to do. So who we are 10 years from now, we should be able to look back here and say, whoa, I've really grown a lot, or I used to think this way, or I wasn't aware of this and now I am aware. So this is a journey of awareness, breathing in awareness, breathing in air, awareness and intentionality and risk. And I love it that the theme is coming out. When you start thinking about breathing in air, and when you also think about awareness, intentions, and risks, it's everywhere. Yes, it's in Maurice's motorcycle story. Yes, it's for all of us. It's universal. This is the human journey. So I hope that helps a little bit, Sheikh. And I hope it helps other people too here.
Judy, would it be correct to say that, I think Sheikh was saying, I wish I had known some things. I would have done things differently if I'd known back then what I know today. But I say, as I relate some of my experiences, I mean, most people on here know that the downturn in 2008 was disastrous for me. I had the rug pulled out from under me. I made some poor decisions, cost me a lot of money. But for that experience, though, I wouldn't be the person I am today. So isn't that just part of life's journey? Isn't what Shake experienced just part of his life? He wouldn't be the person today.
That's my point. I hope I got that point out.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like every one of us can identify with that. And yes, there's things that have happened and we judge them too soon. Actually, I did a live Facebook on this recently. Have y'all heard the story of the Chinese farmer, the folk story? And where there was this, the farmer had this horse that ran away, and all the townspeople said, "Oh, that's too bad, your horse ran away," or something like. And the farmers would say, "Maybe yes, maybe no, it may not be, maybe good, maybe bad." But anyway, goes through this sequence of, well, the son was riding on the horse, and then the son fell off the horse, and then he broke his leg, and the townspeople said, "Oh, that's bad," and the farmer said, maybe yes, maybe no." And then the town, or the country was going into war. They were recruiting all these young men, and the son couldn't go and fight in the war and risk his life and possibly die. And the townspeople said, "Oh, isn't this wonderful?" So we judge ourselves and we judge our circumstances way too soon, because it's not over. Like, our journey continues. And yes, there is newness. And yes, we can make, out of the messes of our lives, there's a message that is life-giving, and it's a narrative that makes it so you tuning into your worthiness. And it's part of who we are, and it shapes us to be better people, because we have listened to the messages rather than gotten stuck in them. So am I on track there? Am I going in the trajectory or the path that you were?
Yeah, I think we are. I was just looking at you, Marcia. How does this relate to, you've shared some of your life stories. How is this tracking with you as far as chaos just being a part of life and helping us to be who we are today?
It's absolutely true. I was just thinking, we were talking about 2008. 2008 was also devastating for my husband. And we lived in Alexandria, Virginia at the time, which is a very expensive place to live when you have a financial crash, which is how we ended up in Chattanooga. And very quickly, about a year and a half after we moved, my husband, Bob, had a devastating heart attack. The doctors said, "You can't have a bigger one and survive." When I called 911, we lived on Signal Mountain at the time, Glenn. They were literally there within 45 seconds of my call, because the ambulance was coming back up the mountain after having delivered somebody, made a left, and was right there at our house. Had they not been there that fast, he would not have survived. And he ended up being in the hospital ICU for a month after open heart surgery and all this kind of thing. But we looked back at it and we thought, if we had not been at that place at that moment, he wouldn't have survived. In Alexandria, Virginia, where the hospitals were located and how hectic it was, it would have been impossible. And we looked back and we went, how God orchestrated that to save Bob's life. And you think of different things in your life and you think they're so devastating at the time, but being people of faith, that God can make something good out of anything. And you look at how God can lay a path for you that is so astonishing that you look back on it, you think, how silly for me to have been fearful about anything. God had it all along. So yes, on many levels, I'm relating to what she's talking about.
Yeah,
the I agree with so much of this, and it's really great to do this. In fact, one of the reasons that we're here today is what I wanted to add to the situation, just re-embellish it, is when you slow down to breathe, you have to remember all the experiences that you had before and all the knowledge that you picked up, so that you can go back to that and use it to aid you in the situation that you're in. Working on this doll has been an interesting project. I over the years, I've done a lot of different things, and literally this project has used every one of them. And if I didn't have even one, I don't think we could pull it off. But it's a it's an interesting situation that I've come to realize here lately, is that when you stop and take that breath, and you have to rebuild yourself. You have to go back, remind yourself of the good things. You don't have to remind yourself of the bad things. That's being done automatically. And it almost makes proof that you're the soul. You're the thing listening to your brain. And we talk sometimes about how we are what we think. We're really not. We're the thing that's listening to our thoughts. Mm-hmm. And we have to remind ourselves of the good things, of the things that have been done by the universe or God before, that it's all in control and things are working out for the best. It always will. And but we have to stop and remind ourselves of that. It's like eating. You have to deliberately go eat something, but you can automatically starve. If you stand there and don't do anything, you'll starve. So you have to deliberately eat. So these constant negative things, the lizard part is always there, but you have to stop and remind yourself that all the stuff you've done before. It's like Marie's getting on the motorcycle. One thing I'm almost sure you had to do, I don't ride motorcycles anymore. It's another story. And but you had to probably somewhere in there stop and think about how, okay, I know how to ride a motorcycle. I know how to do it right. I've done it before. And that's part of the buildup of being able to have the strength to get back on it again. It's not like starting new. And one place I learned that, I worked down at Kennesaw Mountain, which was a Civil War battlefield down near Atlanta. And I did demonstrations out in front of people. And I've never been one for talking to a lot of people, but it was a subject I knew something about, which helps. And long story short, after 4 years, I talked to a minimum of over 3 million people. Wow. And you told me when I started, I'll be talking to 3 million people. I couldn't even conceive of that. But because I didn't realize the experience I had, and the experience I have learned over the years and become so apparent working on this doll project. But even on casting, I've probably cast more varied things than most people have. I didn't really realize it. I just worked on different projects with people, and next thing I know, I've got the knowledge that I need to put this thing together. And irregardless of whatever anybody else says, I know this can be done. And that's strictly because of the experience I have. So when you stop and take a breath, you have to remember the good parts. Remember what you have. Remember the tools you have with you. And
that's beautiful. I actually want to even expound on what you said about how automatic those negative thoughts are, neuroscience wise. And this is from Dr. Rick Hansen in his, I can't remember the name of his book, but anyway, talks about like there's gazillions of neurons in our brains, right? And a negative thought on a neuron of the brain will attach itself like Velcro. So imagine that. And then, so every negative thing, every negative action, every rumination attaches like Velcro. And every positive thought will slide off like Teflon on that very same neuron, unless you ponder for 15 seconds. So thus, we're going to have this imbalance. It's not 50-50, like if there's interactions I have with a couple and there's so much negativity, like to balance that off, they're going to have to do at least 20 positive interactions with each other to every one negative. That's going to even it out. And that's so true neuroscience wise. It's actually true in scripture, where to think on the things that are true and honest and just and of good report, things that are virtuous, that are praiseworthy. Well, all this stuff is now catching up, or neuroscience is catching up with this ancient wisdom, right? So I just wanted to expound on that. You're so right about that. And we need to be intentional to think of positives. Now, I wake up every morning and my of course, I didn't do it this morning because I came early, but I have a gratitude journal. I write down things that I am thankful for, because you can get really off. And sometimes people are coming to the counseling office and they think that the positive is crazy. They think that the positive isn't realistic. And they grab a hold of the trauma or the negative that's realistic. No, that's not realistic at all, right? We've got to make sure that we live this life in such a way that we are in awe, and have this gratitude. But thank you so much. This project that you two are doing is amazing. And when that when you're in the middle of a project, whether that's writing a book like Deborah does, or what you all are doing, it's like, it will transform you in this process, right? It certainly did that when I wrote my book. It will transform you, and rightly so, because this project is bigger. And anyway, I just wanted to commend you all for what you're doing, because I think it's remarkable.
I think it is too, and it's going to be an awesome success. Dan, you've experienced a life experience that maybe changed your life a little bit. You've got a little one now. How old is the little one?
Well, we'll start with, I'm almost 45 and I should have my head examined for having another baby, but I enjoyed it so much the first time around 10 years ago that I did it again. So my advice for fear is, I think Judy's absolutely correct. We need to be intentional, and that's a big thing on my plate. Every morning as well, I wake up and show gratitude. That's something that I'm very intentional about. Despite what we face, it's how we react, how our mind reacts to it. But when it comes to fear, we have to be intentional. But I think this is where coaching comes in too. And I have a deep appreciation for maybe how Judy does it, Glenn's style as well. My first daughter, her mother is a therapist as well. And she has a way of taking people on this journey and educating them and holding their hand through the fear to get them to realize and have the appropriate thought processes. And I have a deep appreciation for that. Now, anyone that's worked with me understands that I'm the guy. I'm going to take you up in the airplane. You've never jumped out of a plane before. I'm going to take you all the way up. We're going to talk about it. We're going to face the fear. I'm going to put my foot on your back and you're going out the door. And on the way down, you're going to feel fear. You're going to feel excitement. And I'm going to meet you on the ground and we're going to look at each other and I'm going to say, but did you die? Well, no. Cool. The point is, take action, even if it's imperfect. That action may be over the course of months of therapy. That action may be as quick as, especially for a prideful man, which I was, I needed to be smashed in the chest with a board, figuratively, to have it go, okay, now I've got it. Because I didn't respond to other types. I'd have another strong man just nail me with it, nail me with the truth. And not only another strong man, but God had to say, hey, here you go. You get the message now. And finally I was like, oh, all right. So imperfect action, any action is better than no action. And I think that's key when it comes to dealing with fear or the unknown, because that's how we learn. We could all say, if we knew now what we know then, but we wouldn't be who we are now. So that's my take.
That's so true. I just wrote you a little note here too, because I'm totally with you on that. And I just love it that you're working with prideful men, right? And some women might call them by the N word, narcissists, right? But we don't want to use that word. We want to just call them prideful men because pride is something we all deal with, right?
And no, that's a
you.
really good point, Judy, because I'll go as far as to, I put out on Facebook, I'm like, you've got to love yourself. Okay. And what does that mean? It means that you may be called a narcissist. Oh no, we're labeled. But I feel that, you know what, if we as men, as women, as everyone, if we loved ourselves more to begin with, we'd have less problems on this planet.
Absolutely. And I'm telling you, I do address this also in my book, that little boys raised in our culture and other cultures, they're groomed to, when they fall down, skin their knee, hey, suck it up,
Right.
suck it up. You're, big boys don't cry. So little boys growing up are learning early how not to pay attention to their emotions.
Right.
And they know the emotions of anger and irritability really well, but they're not integrated. They've not been able then to learn this skill, right? And then grandpa was that way, great grandfather's that way, great grandfather. It's kind of like there's so much that affects our here and now that has its deep root systems. It is a systemic thing that we need to also be aware of, that what I'm dealing with in my problems right now, it's not just me. So we're having to bust through this. And so, I do help people do that. Of course, I think it would be, I don't think I'd want to be one of your coachees. I don't want to go out a plane just to be kicked out. I will on tandem, maybe. I'd love to do that. But I love it that, yes, taking action is the thing to do for sure. Thanks, Dan.
Definitely.
Judy,
Oh, also, Judy, I love your lizard. I totally resonate with that because I have one here in the office too. Except it's real. So
it is. Oh, it's a real one, you said.
Yeah, it is. We found it outside all dried up. It must have got into the mouse poison or whatever.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah,
Wash your hands. Wash your hands.
I ate dirt when I was a child, and sometimes I still do. So that's what my immune system is for.
I thought maybe you used that for your clients.
Judy, you mentioned that little boys are groomed to not pay attention to their emotions. Beginning with the millennials and continuing now into Gen Z, we're bringing up children where they're taught that they're all winners. If they participate in Little League, they get a participant's trophy. But in life, you either win or lose. So is this good, what we're doing to the kids now? Everybody's a winner?
Well, I don't know about that one. You're making me think on that one there, Glenn.
Well, I tell you what brought it to mind. I had Dr. Tim Bono, who is the Dean of Positive Psychology and out of Washington University, on another program I had several years ago. And he said one of the biggest problems that he found at that time, he surveyed about 900 students, is that they did not know how to fail. And he said, at the time he was about 36. He said, because I was one of those. So that's the reason I started surveying people. He said when he entered Washington University, he had been a good student in high school, had made good grades. And then suddenly he wasn't doing so good in college. He went to his counselor. His counselor went over all of his courses and his grades and said, you're doing good here, here, here. Said, whoops, this upper level math course, you're not doing too good there, Tim. Says, why are you taking it? He said, well, I thought I needed it. He said, well, you don't need it for your major. So he said, I dropped it and life was good again. But what he had discovered is that the kids, like himself, didn't know how to fail. I found him through an AP article. He was sitting there looking at a box on his desk with all of his participant certificates and participant trophies. And then he suddenly was hit with life. You go to college, you either pass or you fail.
Actually, you know what? Impulsively, I didn't have it in my mind, but as you spoke, Glenn, here's what came to me. And there is an author, I would have to look and see, but there is a difference between a growth mindset versus telling everybody on the team that they're winners. So what you want to do, and actually so this is just briefly because I know we don't have much time, but you want to, when you're raising your kids or anybody, I guess, you want to make them winners on their effort. So if they did a poor job, if they didn't do well, right, we need to say, hey, how do you feel about it? Or I'll bet you could do better next time. But yes, we do need to teach our kids how to fail, and also see failure as not a bad thing, but it actually is a stepping stone to growth, which you probably tell your clients all the time, Dan, maybe. So, but yeah, failure isn't a bad thing. We need to fail, and we need to then put effort into getting good. And even my coaching that I get and mentoring I get with our beloved Les Brown, I'm meeting with him every week on Wednesdays, along with some others, that, he says, I didn't used to be this way, right? And so as wonderful and great as a speaker he is, he continues to grow himself, even at the age of 76 years old. But that wasn't an earlier version of Les Brown. Okay. So we need to really congratulate people and celebrate them on their effort, not on, oh, they're a winner, or, oh, you're gifted, or, oh, you're this, or, oh, you're that, because you don't want to settle anywhere. Like I said, those, you can get stuck and and not live your life. You need to continue to grow. Does that help, Glenn?
Sure, it does.
I'll try to put that in your comments, the author's name, with that.
Okay, good. Anyone else? We're about to run out of time. We've got about 3 minutes. Anyone else want? Rick? Yes, sir.
What you're talking about with failure is when you have a failure, you realize you're alive at the end, like Dan was talking about with parachute. Not that failure, that was actually working out. Is that you realize you can go on, you can try again. And when you go through that enough, that's when you start getting experience to be able to even go further with whatever it is you're doing. It's the previous experience we don't give enough credit to, and when you can teach that, that's a great thing.
I got a quick, to me, a little bit of a funny story about fear. The bigger issues about fear, I taught myself to conquer years ago. And of course, it's a continuing process, but I don't feel fear often anymore. Except recently, I was in the process of applying for an SBIR federal grant. And that was way outside of my bailiwick. I didn't know anything about it. I researched, I worked so hard on it. And we had hired a woman who was a grant writer to help. And so I had to get all this stuff prepared for her. And it was my impression that when it came time to actually submitting the grant, that was part of what she did. We came down to the final day that it was due. And she informed me that I had to be the one that actually submitted it through my grants.gov account. And I'm telling you, I got so fearful, I could hardly breathe, even thinking about it right now. And I had to relearn, okay, Marcia, breathe, because I knew getting into that whole thing and pressing those right buttons and with hours to spare. And I got so fearful, and I had to remember all the things that I had taught myself to be able to calm down and to actually do it. And when I finally hit the final button, because it's a process, and all of the buttons were right, the relief factor was, but I survived, and I learned one more thing. But anyway,
Thank you so much, Marcia. Folks, our time is running out. You nailed it today, Judy. Awesome. Thank you. It just made for such a wonderful mastermind. I think we all took home, have many, many takeaways, and I look forward to me editing it and getting it posted. I'll do it as soon as I can. Remember, on the 27th, I believe, is our next meeting. That's Marie Cosgrove. She will be talking on 3 tips to succeed in business, even during challenging times. She's the author of Greater Fortune, which I predict will be a New York Times bestseller. And then on the 30th, we'll have our social at Corey Green's karate studio or dojo. And that will be purely social. There will be no mastermind. Marsha will be in contact with you. Folks, it's been an absolute pleasure to be with you. I love each and every one of you. And remember, your day will be just as good as you visualize it. And for those that would like to stick around and tell the speaker goodbye, and kind of like we do when we're in person, maybe Judy can stick with us for a few minutes as I end the
Actually, hey,
recording.
Glenn, I would love to, but I've got somebody that's a worker at my door that I need to.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll.
Because I want to connect with you all. But if you're on LinkedIn, or if you're on Facebook, I'm showing up every day on Facebook for little, 5-15-minute videos. I don't know. Are y'all on Facebook or LinkedIn mostly? I don't know. But anyway, it's Judy K. Herman, Facebook wise, but I'll look for you all, or LinkedIn. I'll just try to remember you all.
Do that. And out of respect for Judy, she did this as all our guests do. It's free of charge. But, she, like all of us, makes a living by talking and speaking and writing. So if you would, go on to social media and make a good positive comment about your takeaway today. Thanks a lot, Judy.
Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.